Tennessee, there's a lot of waiting going on in Knoxville. It was a very big day today, although if you were just casually watching your TV, this is not something that would have scrolled across the bottom line on any of the major news networks. It's not necessarily something that would have been all over the front page of 247sports.com, but yet there's a lot going on, and you Tennessee fans know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, here we go. So I've had my own personal feel on this, and I don't think I need to rehash it anymore. It is my feel, though, most recently, that what we've been calling the point of no return was passed, and it was passed several weeks ago. And basically the point of no return is, how far can we let this go where Jeremy Pruitt may still have a chance to succeed if he's retained? Well, I changed my philosophy on this. Now, if you maybe the last time you watched the show was in October, and now you're listening to what I'm about to say, it's going to sound really hypocritical. It's not, but I'm trying to explain why I changed my thinking. My personal thinking going into 2020 was, as I've told you many times, I didn't think anyone who wasn't already on the hot seat should be placed on the hot seat because of what's happening in 2020. Okay, but now I'm telling you, I don't think it's going to work out with Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee, and I think they got to make a move. How do those two things jive? Well, it's kind of like, I was talking to a buddy, a big Tennessee fan the other day, and he asked me, how can you square one of those ideologies with the other? And it would be like if I told you, as long as I live in Tampa, Florida, I'm willing to walk outside shirtless 365 days a year. But then we moved to Minneapolis, and I'm no longer willing to do it. And you say, I thought you said you'd walk around shirtless every day, 365 days out of the year. I will, as long as we live in Tampa. We're in Minneapolis. I'm not doing it anymore. And so having the conditions that we have at Tennessee, I can no longer look at Jeremy Pruitt, even if I personally wouldn't put him on the hot seat. It doesn't matter because he is on it, and he's past the point of no return now. There's been a hiring freeze, kind of a conditional one, which is weird, and we're about to talk about. Hasn't been able to hire. Recruits have been bleeding. His own roster has been bleeding, and I don't know that they can stop it, even if they were to retain and status quo was maintained at this point. So the very latest, including some happenings today, here's what's been going on. There has been an internal investigation there. My best guess, based on people I've talked to there, is this stuff's been really going on since late November, early December. I think the timeline will come more into focus as more of the details are made public, and that's coming sooner rather than later. That's coming. So today was a big day there. Today, according to many people behind the scenes at Tennessee, was the first time really that lawyers and Jeremy Pruitt and his representation and the university, they're all in a room and findings are starting to be shared. And it's sort of like, you undo the envelope and you open the paper and, Coach, here we go. Can you explain this? Can you explain that? Can you explain these bullet points? And it's probably the first time Jeremy Pruitt has a chance to really defend himself in sort of an open session there, open in terms of everything being on the table. I have no idea what a timetable is, nor do I know what to expect. Like a lot of people woke up this morning thinking, hey, we're going to know by close of business today whether Jeremy Pruitt's going to be our head coach next week or not. I don't know about that. However, I do expect a resolution sooner rather than later. Now, the decision's going to come shortly. That's my belief. Don't have that confirmed. That is a widely held belief in circles in Knoxville right now. What happened right before this, though? Because here's where it gets really, really interesting. There's been a hiring freeze. It's been widely reported to where Pruitt has not been able to hire because the chancellor up there, it's very understandable, looks and says, I don't know if you're going to be here, so I'm certainly not going to let you go hire other people and lock them into 2 or 3 year contracts. We're not doing that. Let's just hold firm. We're going to find out what these investigators know, and then we'll make a move. Well, then all of a sudden, you wake up and Kevin Steele's been hired by Tennessee, and you're like, what in the world? Kevin Steele? How are we hiring him? What role are we hiring him for? Does anyone, as of this moment, know what role Kevin Steele is going to fill there? No, you don't. So I did a little digging on this, and I know what the perception is. The perception is Steele's probably being brought in. And I agree with this, by the way. Steele's being brought in, not necessarily given a title because he could fill any of a number of roles. If Pruitt's still there, he may just be, an off-field analyst or something, or maybe a position coach. Maybe he ends up being a defensive coordinator, or maybe if Pruitt is ousted, he ends up being the head coach, permanent, interim, I don't know. And what is known, I guess, by some people, but maybe not by most, is Steele and Pruitt are very close, very good friends. I was told this is the kind of move that on his way out the door, even if he knew he was on his way out the door, this is the kind of solid that Jeremy Pruitt would be willing to do. if it was within his power to do it. Now, I can't tell you that's what's happening. I can just tell you, if you're wondering if this has made Pruitt irate or if he's on board with it, he probably views his situation as being totally separate and independent of Kevin Steele being brought in there, and what happens to him one way or the other. So that's the first thing. Are they correlated? Are they connected? That's what we don't know, but we will find out. So my feel is at this point, this is a matter of when Pruitt's out at Tennessee, no longer if he's going to be out at Tennessee. That's my feel right now. And also, the natural follow-up is, well, twofold. Number one, where does he go? And we can answer that when the time comes. But number two is, what does Tennessee do? And so that's what I want to focus on here. There's been a lot of talk about Hugh Freeze, understandably so. I never talk to two people that say the exact same thing about Hugh Freeze. I've spoken to people who really want him at Tennessee. I've not spoken to anyone at Tennessee who wants him at Tennessee. A lot of people around the program do. I have talked to people who say there's no shot from the league level that he's going to be at Tennessee. Maybe people who are going to make the decision at Tennessee look at Hugh Freeze as a non-starter. Like, there are a lot of differing philosophies, which really means no one really knows anything. But he's a name that's at least going to be thrown around. Doug Marrone is a name that's been thrown around. Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina, that's a name that's been thrown around. These are popular names. If you're in the Tennessee circles, you've heard these names. But Steele is also there. And I think we have to view Kevin Steele, if this move is made, as a legitimate option. Now, here's the biggest key. The biggest key is what kind of option would he be, because the big key is you have to nail this. Here's where it's not optional. Director Collins, big Tennessee guy. Director Collins and I were talking 5 minutes before the show started, and, we both agreed Tennessee's been in the wilderness. They've been in the wilderness for a long time. I think they got one more shot to get it right. With the way the landscape's changing, I'm a believer Tennessee can still sit at the big boy table. It's not too late. The sport has not left them behind to the point where that room where all the big boys hang out, it's no longer attainable. I don't believe that, but I believe the door is closing quickly. So, there are two ways to look at this. It can be a mess and it can also be salvageable. But the biggest key is you have to nail this. You don't have to settle on your permanent replacement before the 2021 season starts, but what you do have to do is refuse to lose the 2021 season. So here's what I mean by that. Kevin Steele could very well fill an interim head coaching basis while you get an early head start on the for real coaching search, and you're looking to use the entire season. It'd be kind of an unprecedented spot to be in, but you use the entire season, and you make sure you vet everybody this side of Jupiter that's qualified to be the head coach at Tennessee. You get all the big money involved, and you make sure you scour the entire country and you nail the hire. Don't care who it is. You got to nail the hire. I think maintaining status quo would be losing the 2021 season. By that I mean, I think keeping Jeremy Pruitt would be losing the 2021 season. I love Jeremy Pruitt. I cannot find any path where he remains the head coach at Tennessee and things end up being turned around for the better and they end up being a championship caliber program. Part of that is his fault. Another part of that is the position the university has put him in. Maybe through his fault, maybe because of this investigation, whatever you want to, however you want to frame that. I don't think there's a way forward there, is what I'm telling you. I hate talking about that kind of stuff. Never do I call for people's jobs on here, and I'm not doing it now. We don't do much hot seat talk. I don't like it. It makes me feel kind of icky, but I think those are the facts. So Tennessee, I think, has one more shot. If they have a coaching search coming up, I think they got one more shot. The next hire they make, whether it's Kevin Steele or someone else, I think the next hire they make, that's going to determine the next entire generational chapter of Tennessee football. So the landscape's shifting. We all see it shifting. Right now, there's one school of thought that Tennessee's already been left behind. What they were capable of in the late 90s, early 2000s, they're no longer capable of. I don't believe that. I've made the case for the Tennessee job several times. But the bottom line is, if you don't have the right man in the driver's seat, doesn't matter what I or anyone else think the program's capable of. It is not good right now. It can be good. And it doesn't matter if 99% of the coaching public out there views it as a B tier or C tier job. If you find the one right guy, that's all it takes. Alabama was a total train wreck. when they ended up getting Nick Saban to buy into the vision of Alabama football. If you're 22 years old right now, I'm speaking Mandarin Chinese. You could never imagine a world where University of Alabama football is not on top of the world. Well, there was a time, folks, where Alabama was in every bit the mess that Tennessee football is in right now. There was one guy, even as the Rich Rodriguez's of the world were turning it down, there was one guy that Mal Moore got to buy into the vision of University of Alabama football and what it could be. It just so happened to be Nick Saban. I'm going to say this, it's a very loaded sentence, and I understand how unrealistic this part is, but understand the principle that I mean when I say this. You got to go find your Nick Saban. So you got to go find the one guy who happens to be right for the job and who buys into the vision of what the job could be and the program could be. That's it. It's as easy and as hard as that. But first things first, we got to get all this Jeremy Pruitt stuff and this investigation stuff figured out. So I highly advise you, this is the last show we're doing until Sunday. I highly advise you to stay tuned to the channel. Keep it locked on 247sports.com. You can follow me on Twitter at LateKickJosh, because I can assure you there'll be more information coming out about this tomorrow, over the weekend. Like, who knows what Friday and Saturday could bring here.